All right, guys, welcome back, or welcome, whichever the case may be. John McAfee found dead in a Spanish prison near Barcelona. What happened to Johnny? Well, we don't know yet. We don't know. They're not saying. They're saying suicide, but let's back up a little bit. If you don't know who John McAfee is or was, let me give you a real quick, brief outline. Okay, he was born in 1945 in Britain. He made his name in the 80s with the company McAfee Associates, which is the famous company that keeps popping up on your computer all the time saying you need security on your computer. McAfee. That's him. And in 1994, he left that company. He started in the late 80s. 94, he left that company. He resigned. He sold his shares, reportedly for about $100 million. Not a bad hunk of change. There's stories about in 2007 it dropped down. His net worth dropped down a great deal because of the economy at the time. But anyway, he sold it in 94 for $100 million. A side note, the company Intel bought McAfee Associates in 2010 for $7.9 billion. Yep, that's what it'd be. Billion. After he left in 1994, he did several businesses. I was going to list them here, but who cares? They all failed. All right, so from 94 to about 2008, he just basically was economically jerking off. In 2008, he moved to Belize, and he started another business named Quorumex, Quorumex. And that was supposed to be a herbal antibiotics company, okay? Natural antibiotics. Belize authorities weren't buying that. He started that in 2008, or he moved down there in 2008. I'm not exactly sure when he started the company, but by April of 2012, that company was raided by the Belize police. Suspicion of manufacturing methamphetamine. Now, one thing you need to know about John McAfee: drug addict, alcoholic, gun-toting nutcase. So I'm not surprised they thought he was making methamphetamine. When they did that raid, they took his passport and his guns away, and apparently shot one of his dogs. I don't know what that was about. And he was in prison for a short time. Later on, shortly thereafter, not long at all, we're talking days, all the charges were dismissed. So he got off on that one. That was April of 2012. On a side note, at the time, he was dating a 16-year-old girl. In April 2012, John McAfee was 66 years old. And he was dating a 16-year-old. He was 50 years old when she was born. It might be legal in Belize, but it's not moral anywhere. But anyway, later on, that was a side note. Later on, in 2012, later that year, he had a neighbor named Gregory Fall, Faull. And Gregory was a expat neighbor, and he hated John McAfee. He complained about the parties and the young girls and armed bodyguards everywhere. And apparently McAfee had like 9 dogs running around. I don't know if they were protection dogs or whatever the hell they were, but this neighbor hated this guy. I mean, he was a rich guy, expat, retired as a Belize, and he had the great luck of having John McAfee as a neighbor. So this guy, Gregory Fall, complains to the local mayor and says, this guy's a nutcase. He's ruining my life. I spent a fortune on this house. Go do something about this. Well, that didn't get too far because 2 days after he complained to the mayor, he was found dead with a gunshot wound to his head. Yeah. So obviously, McAfee was the main suspect in that death. And before they were investigating him, before he was formally charged with anything, he fled Belize. He left. And he never was formally charged with that murder. I think we can all kind of surmise what happened there, but he was never formally charged with that murder. and he fled Belize to Guatemala. And in Guatemala, he was arrested in December of 2012. So that didn't last long. So they wanted to deport him back to Belize. During that procedure, McAfee actually faked 2 heart attacks to stop the proceedings. And it must have worked, because at some point, he never did get deported back to Belize. He was deported to Miami, Florida. So he was good to go. Now in 2015, he announced he was going to run for the U.S. presidency. For the new party, it was called the Cyber Party. But later on, he switched to the Libertarian Party, I'm totally guessing, to their dismay. And obviously, he didn't go anywhere with that. And he actually tried to run again in 2020. But he was in exile at the time due to tax evasion and investigation. So, yeah, that's a good way to seriously run for the presidency of the United States, by being afraid to be in the country. That's a good deal. Here's the finance tie-in. Between 2016 and 2018, spilling in a little 2019, McAfee did a bunch of speaking engagements about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to be $1 million in 3 months. Bitcoin is the bee's knees, man. I mean, he got paid to just be speaking up Bitcoin. And then some people with a shitcoin, an altcoin, started paying him a bunch of money to shill theirs. And he started talking about how bad Bitcoin was, and it was a scam. And this is why he's pretty much hated in the Bitcoin community, and doesn't have anybody's respect worldwide. Anybody who knows anything about anything thinks John McAfee is nothing less than an asshole. But during this time, he's getting paid to shill Bitcoin, then he's getting paid to shit on Bitcoin, and he's doing consultant work. He sold his life story to some company or anything. But during all that time, he didn't report any of that money to the IRS. So he got that, took the money and ran, didn't pay any taxes. Also charged with defrauding investors for over $13 million with these shitcoins, telling people this is the next thing, and because he'd done speaking engagements, because in general people are sheep and they just think because somebody says something with authority, it's true, and that's so not true. Like I always say, do your own research. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just some voice on YouTube. I don't care who it is, what they're saying. Look it up. It doesn't take long to do a 20-minute search on Google to find out if somebody's full of crap. You know what I mean? Hey, before I get too far, hit thumbs up, will you? Or subscribe or something. I don't know. Throw me a bone, man. $13 million. He defrauded investors to invest in this shitcoin. I can't believe he got that much money. And also, he bought yachts and real estate and money laundering, and he didn't report any of that either. This is one of Bitcoin's worst nightmares. Everyone tries to forget John McAfee. All right, that's enough of the background. Let's fast forward. He was arrested in Spain in October of 2020. He was fighting extradition back to the United States because he said it was going to be a political circus. I don't know why anybody, I guess because he ran for president or something, I don't know. They were arresting him for tax evasion. They were going to extradite him back for tax evasion. It had nothing, not political, in my personal opinion. But he lost that fight in June of 2021, which happens to be this month. The day after, they said, nope, we're going to send you back there. There were like 10 charges, and his lawyer managed to get it down to 3 charges, but it still wasn't enough. I mean, he was going back to the USA. The next day after that was decided by the courts. That next morning, he talked to his wife on the phone, saying he was going to fight this. He's not done. And he said, I'll call you later that night. But that same day, he's found dead in his cell. From what was reported this is the authorities talking, they said everything indicates a suicide. Everything indicates a suicide. That's all they said. No statement was made of why it was considered obvious why it looked like a suicide, and what made it indicate suicide. They haven't said anything yet. The only statement they've said thus far is they're waiting for a toxicology report, which could take days or even weeks. All right, let's look at this, fairly logically for 3 seconds. They're saying it's an obvious suicide. So now you're thinking, or I'm thinking, we are thinking, he's got a noose around his neck, Epstein. He was suicided. But they would have said, looks like a suicide, ligaments, or it was hanging from a bedpost. Maybe he slit his wrists. They didn't say that. They didn't say found in a pool of blood, apparent suicide. They didn't say that. And they're waiting for a toxicology report, which just indicates an overdose. And for the life of me, if you get a 75-year-old guy that's been locked up in a jail cell and you see him laying on the bed dead, don't you think heart attack, stroke, something like that? I don't think you would say everything indicates suicide because he's laying in bed dead. He's 75 years old and we can't find anything else. That's like saying we're waiting for a toxicology report and forgetting to mention that he put a gun to his head and blew off half his brains. It doesn't make any sense. So we're all going to have to sit on our hands and wait and find out what this toxicology report says. I'm sure it's standard procedure, but you don't leave out the big stuff. You don't just say, well, we're just going to wait for the toxicology report. We're not going to mention the fact that, he had no head. It doesn't work that way. One news source, I'm not even going to say who they are because I have no respect for them whatsoever, said that he left a note for his wife and family in his pocket, a suicide note. But I haven't seen that anywhere else. I mean, one news source out of the world said that. So his wife's not even saying that. His wife's actually pretty pissed off. She says, I had a phone call with him that morning. He said he was going to keep fighting and he was going to call me later that day. So she doesn't believe any of this either. So she's calling for a full investigation into his death, and she blames the U.S. government for false political motivated charges. And that's where we stand with John McAfee, the drug addict, the alcoholic, the liar, the con man, the Bitcoin abuser. I don't know. I don't have any respect for the guy. And although I do use McAfee antivirus, it's owned by Intel, so that doesn't make me a hypocrite. That should bring you up to speed on if you didn't know who John McAfee was. Now you know more than you ever wanted to know. I mean, I could have summed it up as who is John McAfee? An asshole. I could have just said that. But, I gave you all the background. So, hey, give me a thumbs up. How's that for a segue? A thumbs up or a like? Yeah, well, that's a thumbs up. Subscribe. Leave a comment about I don't care what. You can share it. However, you can help the channel, man. I mean, we're talking, this channel is like 10 days old. Man, that would be awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and karma. Till the next one, my friends. Till the